So I brought a new Nintendo 3DS LL. It's the equivalent of the new Nintendo 3DS XL in the US, but you can't just change the UI language to English. So you're basically stuck with Japanese text on the menus. I bought it because it was really cheap. It was like 600 Hong Kong dollars and it's in really good condition. And my 3DS XL was getting pretty teared up because I've been using it a lot in the past. And I figured that the 3DS is a really hard machine to emulate. Like you can emulate it, but you don't get the 3D effect that you really want, which I like. I know some people don't like the 3D effect, but yeah, I really like it. And I figured that in the future, if I really wanted to play some 3DS games on emulation on the PC, it just wouldn't feel the same. So yeah, I wanted the real machine. As you can see, the 3DS that I got was already hacked. You can see there's FBI on it, so someone's already hacked it. But I'm gonna do it again today. So because I want a clean install, and I don't know how the other guy did it, but I want to make sure that it's clean. And also I wanted to back up the system files in case in the future something goes wrong. So now I'm factory resetting the machine, and it's all in Japanese, so I'm kind of winging it and guessing. So once I've done my own installation, I'm gonna attempt to change the UI to English. I've read that it can be done, but you can't access the eShop after you change the region. So I'm going to change the region from Japanese to the US so that the UI would be in English. Since now the eShop's closed, I don't really need the eShop. Um, and also I'm gonna only be playing English games. So and you can't update the games through the eShop. So you'd have to download the updates and install them manually, I guess. And then I'm gonna probably check if I can play the games online. Yeah, so sit back and enjoy the ride. So here is the initial setup that I have to do after I factory resetted it. Um, I'm gonna fast forward this part because it's in Japanese and it took me some time. Yeah, it might be a bit boring to watch all of this setup. So after all the settings done, I'm in the main screen. It's still in Japanese. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow a 3DS hack guide. I'll leave a link in the description. I recommend everyone that wants to install custom firmware to use this guide. So now I'm checking my firmware. I'm on 11.15.0 hyphen 47J, which is a Japanese firmware. I need this because in the guide you need to let them know which firmware you're on because different firmware has different methods to do it. If this is your first time, I recommend reading through this guide step by step because you will mess up. I've done before. I messed up in this video too, so you'll see down in the later in the video that I messed up a few times. So make sure. My video is not a like in-depth tutorial. I'm gonna be skipping some parts. Uh, so just but make sure if you're doing it by yourself, read the guide. All right, so here's where I'm gonna start fast forwarding the video because it drags on. I'm taking it slow. Um, I'm reading the guide. I'm recording. I'm opening up the 3DS, getting the SD card out, transferring the files that are downloaded to the SD card, putting it back into the 3DS. There's a lot going on, so I'm taking my time there. I don't want to bore you guys to go through all that because you'll probably have to go through it yourself if you're updating or installing custom firmware for your 3DS, which I recommend you do because since the 3DS eShop is closed now, there's really not much point in not installing custom firmware and enjoying the most out of your 3DS. I do enjoy like doing all this setup. It's kind of fun, reading online and then looking at the video tutorials, trying it for yourself, and then once you get it all done, it is quite satisfying. So, so here's my first mistake. At this point, I've installed Luma 3DS, which is the custom firmware, and I'm supposed to run a program called God Mode and it helps me run a script that helps me copy the files to the internal memory of the 3DS so that even without the SD card, I could still boot into custom firmware. And I'm supposed to power off the machine and just hold start and power it back on, and it should load into God mode. But I'm doing it here and it's not working. So I know I messed up somewhere. So I go back to the written guide and I figured that yeah, I messed up. I put the file in the wrong place, so I had to fix that and then do that part again. So that's why I'm telling you that you should really go step by step on the written guide and not just follow some 10-20 minute video tutorial online. I think the video tutorials are good for a reference, how it's done. Uh, but when you do it, you really have to go to the written guide. After finding out where I messed up, I finally fixed my mistake and booted into God mode. So here I'm going to fast forward again. There's a lot of transferring because I'm finalizing the setup and then I'm backing up the system NAND, which is useful in case something happens to your 3DS. If it breaks, you can still restore it. If you have a backup, you can still restore your firmware. So that takes some time to back up, and then also you have to copy it to your computer or somewhere safe. They recommend you to put it in several places like online and offline. It's that important, so make sure that you do this part. Alright, so by now I've completed installing the custom firmware and I'm checking how to change the region from Japan to US, and then I realized that I messed up the second time. Because changing region means that you have to download the US version of the firmware and then copying it into the internal memory of your 3DS, which I just configured and did all that setup, and I'm just overriding it, and I have to do all that again on the new firmware. So a lot of repetitive stuff's going to happen. I'll have to go to God mode, do the Rosalina things, all that setup, all that I have to do again. So that was kind of alright. So now I've changed region. You can see that it's in English, but you know what I mean by when I messed up is, you see, since I changed the region, all the settings have to be done again. Like it's like a factory resetted 3DS, but in English. So all the settings that I did before in the Japanese version, I have to do it all over again in the English one because it's all overridden. If I read the guide thoroughly, I'll probably save myself an hour here. Alright, I'm fast forwarding this part. This is the final steps. I've changed my region. So now I have to set it up and then update the firmware to the latest, which is 11.17 right now. And then I'm gonna install the necessary programs like FBI, Homebrew Launcher, stuff like that. which would be necessary for me to update the games, because since I can't access eShop uh, to update my games now, I need to install them manually by downloading from the internet and then installing it through those programs. I'll probably test it out in the video later. Alright, now everything's done. I'm gonna put a game in, see if it's working. I'm testing Monster Hunter because I wanted to make sure that I could play online multiplayer even if I change the region from Japan to US. But I've realized that I forgot to turn on the Wi-Fi for the 3DS, so I had to record a separate video. I'll let you guys watch to see if I can still go online in 2023 on Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate on the 3DS.